Do you want to know how to learn a language as fast as possible? Are you interested in saving so much time that you end up reaching fluency in months rather than years? After 30 years of learning languages and 10 coaching others to do the same, I believe I finally figured it out. And today I'm going to share it all with you. I'm going to tell you how I would go about learning as much language as possible within 90 days. If that sounds interesting to you, keep watching. And don't forget to stay until the end. If you do, you'll get to hear the one piece of advice that will ensure you that you too can learn a language really fast. Hi, I'm Luca Lampariello. I'm a language coach who speaks 14 languages, and on this channel I help people learn foreign languages more efficiently, faster, and in a fun way. So, how do you learn a language super fast? Let's find out. Not too long ago, I spent a month visiting Budapest, the capital city of Hungary. While I was there, I became friends with Jonathan, a Belgian guy who happened to speak Hungarian. I know a little Hungarian myself, but as I went around the city with him, I remember being in awe of the comfort and fluency with which he spoke the language. Curious, I asked him how long he had been learning Hungarian for. Given his apparent skill, I expected his answer to be anywhere in the range of 10 to 15 years. But no, he hadn't been learning for 15 years, 10 years, or anything in between. In reality, he had begun learning Hungarian only 2 years prior to my visit. 2 years! I'd been learning Hungarian for 7 years at that point, and I was barely conversational. So, what gives? What did this guy know about language learning that I somehow did not? What essential piece of the puzzle was I missing that prevented me from learning Hungarian at that breakneck speed? Now, even more curious, I asked him to tell me as much as he could about his history with Hungarian. I hoped that the details of his story would reveal something that I could use to improve my own language learning speed too. The whole story is too long to recount here, but here are the most pertinent details. He began learning Hungarian in a school that followed an immersion learning model. Even from day one, the students were not allowed to speak any other language but Hungarian. Shortly after that, he moved in with his then Turkish girlfriend, and they decided to use only Hungarian with each other. After a few short months of a lifestyle in which both his home and school lives were all in Hungarian, my friend was able to speak reasonably well, and he had only gotten better since that time. This was fascinating to me. Hungarian is not an easy language to learn for nearly anyone. It's not really related to any other languages in Europe, with the exception maybe of Finnish and Estonian, so most people learning the language would struggle to speak it well even after a few years, myself included. But as I've just described, my Belgian friend's circumstances were very special. He was able to immerse himself in the language practically from his very first day of learning, and that gave him some immense advantages over most learners of Hungarian. But what about those other learners? What about people like you and me who want to learn languages quickly but don't have the benefits of an immersion school and a Hungarian-speaking significant other? What can we do to learn a language and do it really fast like my friend did? I think I have the answer, but before I share it with you, let's begin by defining exactly what it means to learn a language. Clarifying this definition will give us a much better understanding of our goal so that we know exactly what kind of target we're aiming to hit by the end of our 90-day period. Lots of people disagree on what it actually means to have learned a language or become fluent. For some people it means merely being able to communicate, while for others it means having a solid mastery of the language, as an educated native speaker might. Personally, I only consider a language learned when I've reached a very specific skill level. That level, in fact, is one of the 6 levels described by the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or CEFR. If you're not familiar, the CEFR is what we use in Europe to measure language proficiency. The CEFR has 6 levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. In my opinion, fluency begins at the second half of that range, precisely at the B2 level. According to the Council of Europe, the organization in charge of the CEFR, someone at a B2 level is able to understand most TV news and current affairs programs, as well as the majority of films in standard dialect, interact with a degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers quite possible, present clear, detailed descriptions on a wide range of subjects related to one's field of interest. In my experience, a B2 level in a language is not something that it's generally possible for any learner to achieve in 3 months, no matter the language. There's quite simply too much to learn and too little time to do it. If you're interested in learning more about why I feel this way, please check out my video about the myth of reaching fluency in 3 months, a link to which should be popping up now in the corner of your screen. On the other hand, I believe 3 months is entirely enough time to reach a level of B1, which is the level just below B2 on the CEFR scale. Let's take a look now at what that entails. According to the CEFR, learners at a B1 level can understand the main points of clear standard input on familiar matters regularly encountered in work, school, leisure, etc. Deal with most situations likely to arise while traveling in an area where the language is spoken. Can produce simple connected text on topics which are familiar or of personal interest. Describe experiences and events, dreams, hopes, and ambitions, and briefly give reasons and explanations for opinions and plans. To me, those capabilities mesh well with what I think of when I consider a language learned, and together they are things that a dedicated language learner can accomplish within 90 days. Okay, now that we've decided to only call a language learned when our skills reach the criteria for a B1 level, let's define another term: fast. When we say we want to learn a language fast, how fast do we actually mean? This is pretty subjective, since 3 days, 3 weeks, or even 3 months can all be considered pretty quick from a learning perspective. However, for the purposes of this video, we'll stick with 3 months or 90 days. This might not be fast by some people's standards, but it's definitely a short period of time compared to the 3 or 4 years it likely took us all to become fluent in our mother tongues. Alright, with our key definitions out of the way, you're now ready to learn exactly how I would go about learning a language fast, or in other words, how I would reach a B1 level in 3 months. Let's dive right in. Before I share this plan, let me explain a few things. First, I'll share this plan as a series of steps that you can follow in order to learn a language fast. Second, our end goal of B1 in 3 months is only realistic if your target language is similar to your native language. If you're a native English speaker learning, say, Japanese, the time period to reach fluency needs to be adjusted to 6 or 9 months instead of 3. And last, in terms of general structure, I'll be explaining the steps month by month and describing what you should do in each month in terms of 3 things: what you should do, how you should do it, and when you should do it. So, let's begin with month 1. Month 1. What? To begin your quest for fluency, you need a good beginner language course to follow. The best, in my opinion, are the With Ease series of course books provided by Assimil. You can find them online by searching for Spanish with Ease, French with Ease, Hungarian with Ease, and so on and so forth. Assimil's courses are particularly handy because of their excellent content and structure. Typically, they consist of small portable course books that contain around 100 authentic and interesting target language dialogues. Each dialogue comes with audio, a translation into English or some other language you know well, and short but helpful grammar notes. Typically, Assimil is the only resource I recommend for the beginner stages of learning. But since we want to go fast, I'll recommend another resource to use at the same time: Innovative Languages, Pod 101 or Class 101 language courses. These courses, all of which have names like Greek Pod 101 or Korean Class 101, are essentially massive collections of audio and video lessons, each dedicated to a specific language. They often contain tons of authentic, useful language content that is delivered alongside English translations, grammar notes, and all sorts of other useful information. Access to these courses is subscription-based, but there are a bunch of different pricing options to choose from, so you can usually obtain a lot of high-quality language content at very little expense. And there's even a free trial. Best of all, Pod 101 courses are not just limited to beginner content. I've learned several languages using these courses, and they've served me well from the beginner level all the way to advanced proficiency. So that's how I would start. After choosing my target language, say Dutch, I would pick up Assimil, Dutch with Ease, and then the appropriate innovative language course, Dutch Pod 101. How? Now that we have our resources, we need to know how to use them. If we wanted to go at a normal pace, I would say pick either Assimil or Pod 101 and do 1 lesson a day. But our pace, of course, is anything but normal. We want to go fast, so we need to do more each day. A lot more. Specifically, I recommend covering 3 lessons of Assimil and 3 lessons of Pod 101 every single day. But how exactly should we go about doing these lessons? Well, I recommend the following. First, read the content and listen to the accompanying audio at the same time. Next, read the text in your target language and try to focus on the meaning. After that, just listen to the audio by itself and focus on the sounds of the language. Once you're comfortable with the sounds, try to read the text out loud to yourself in an effort to build your pronunciation skills. Listen to the audio again and repeat what you hear as soon as you hear it. This is a technique called shadowing. It will help you really improve your articulation. When you're done with all that, review the grammar notes that come with the lesson to help clarify any doubts you might have. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but we're not quite done yet. In addition to covering 6 new lessons each day, 3 Assimil and 3 Pod 101, you should also review the 6 lessons you learned the previous day, either by rereading or re-listening to their content. That's a lot to manage, I know, but this kind of intensity is essential if you want to attempt a B1 in 3 months. By the way, if you're curious how to do all this at a more reasonable speed, check the link in the description box to learn about my bidirectional translation method course, which teaches a lighter version of this approach for people who want to simply reach the intermediate level, an A2 or B1 in 3 months. Let's talk about the when. We've got our resources and we know what activities we need to do. But for our first month, when should we actually do these things? First off, you'll have to do this every single day. If you skip any days, it becomes much less likely you will learn your target language within the 3-month period. Next, you must keep in mind that I'm recommending that you cover 12 language lessons each day, 6 new lessons and 6 old lessons as review. For most people, that will take up to 3 hours each day. Try not to exceed 3 hours though, since that might lead to burnout, which is the opposite of what we want. Do your best to schedule these 3 hours of learning when you have the most energy. That will give your brain the best chance of absorbing the new material. Take breaks here and there as you need, but always try to make sure you're learning when you're most focused and engaged in the tasks at hand. On to month 2. Month 2, what? At the end of the first month, you likely will have completed all of your Assimil coursebook and most, if not all, of the beginner content from Pod 101. From here, you can continue on with Pod 101 if you'd like. However, I recommend trying a couple of new resources as well, LingQ and LingoPie. These resources are useful at this stage because they're usable with a wide variety of authentic language materials. Specifically, LingQ is great for learning from podcasts and LingoPie is great for learning from videos. More specifically, LingQ is a language learning platform that helps users learn and practice new languages by providing access to a wide range of lessons and activities, as well as tools for tracking progress and monitoring comprehension. LingQ offers a variety of features, including a dictionary and flashcards, and allows users to import content from various sources, such as websites, books, and podcasts, in order to create personalized language lessons. The platform also provides a community of language learners, where users can interact and support each other in their language learning journey. I used it extensively for a number of languages, and in particular, I had a real blast using it to improve Mandarin Chinese. LingoPie is a platform that provides a vast library of high-quality content in the form of video. It has a stunning design and it is fun to use. It has excellent and vast TV content in many popular languages such as Spanish, French, Italian, German, Russian, and Portuguese, and it is great for learners in that it has a number of features such as double subtitles that make the whole learning experience pleasant and rewarding. In short, both of these resources are repositories of language content that is made comprehensible for learners thanks to a variety of tools that each service offers. If you'd like to check them out for yourself, look for my affiliate links down in the description box. Both of these platforms have tons of great content to choose from, and LingQ even has the option for you to upload your own authentic text, so you can technically make a podcast out of any text you want. When using LingQ and LingoPie, you should follow 2 key guidelines. First, only learn with content you find interesting. If you don't find something interesting, you'll be much less likely to actually learn from it. So when choosing content, remember to always follow the fun. Second, try to learn with content that you mostly understand, but do not completely understand. This kind of content is what I like to call both comprehensible and rich. So try to learn rich and comprehensible content every day. You've already been doing this with Assimil and Pod 101, but using LingQ and LingoPie will open you up to a lot more challenging content that covers a wider range of content that your beginner materials could not. In the second half of month 2, you might even want to hire a tutor, which you can do relatively cheaply using services like Italki and Preply. The goal here is to speak, but you want to follow the same theme of learning and discussing content and topics that heavily interest you. Do not focus so much on speaking perfectly. Just speak and listen as much as you can, and your accuracy will steadily and gradually improve. Now, let's talk about the when. As with month 1, I recommend that you continue learning for at least 3 hours a day during month 2. If you can, however, try to push for 4 hours a day. You should be more accustomed to intense learning at this point, so learning for this long should not burn you out like it would in the previous month. Adding another learning hour to your day will give you more time to cover a greater range of language learning content as provided by LingQ and LingoPie, but it also gives you time to fit in the tutoring that I mentioned a few moments ago. Speaking of tutoring, I recommend scheduling at least 2 lessons every week at a rate of 1 every 3 days or so. This will help keep costs low and give you an opportunity to review between each lesson. Month 3. What? For this month, the answer to what you should be learning is simply more of the same. You should be very comfortable with intermediate level podcasts and videos in your target language now. So for this month, you should try to broaden your content base and learn from content on an increasingly wide range of topics. Fortunately, YouTube has a near endless amount of videos in a huge variety of languages. So if you change your YouTube location to a country where your target language is spoken, you can get a lot of material. As you go through more content, try to strike a balance between quantity, watching as many videos as possible, and quality, watching videos which most closely suit your interests. You can also increase your ability to learn from YouTube videos by using handy subtitling and translation tools like those provided by Language Reactor. More about them in the description box. Month 3, you can also continue working with your tutor. If you feel like it, you can even look into hiring a second tutor just so that you can gain experience talking to different people. Let's talk about the how. The how for month 3 is roughly the same as in month 2. Just read and listen to as much content as you can in the same way as you've already been doing. Similarly, you can keep having conversations with your tutor on a wide range of topics that interest you. And now let's talk about the when. So for the when of month 3, you will want to ramp things up even further. Assuming you took my advice for month 2 and are learning for 4 hours a day, for this month you should push for a full 5 hours of learning every single day. With the extra hour of learning, you'll gain a lot of benefit for more frequent speaking practice, so this is the right time to move up to 3 to 4 conversations per week, rather than the original 1 or 2 per week. This will help you inch even closer to conversational fluency by the end of the month. At the end of month 3, you will probably want a way to determine if you've achieved your goal of fluency in your target language. A good way to do this is to see if you can manage a full 30-minute conversation with a native speaker where you're speaking comfortably and confidently and with little difficulty. If you can manage that, I'd say you've definitely reached your goal. This, of course, is not an objective measure of your skill compared to the B1 level of the CEFR. That's only truly attainable through studying for an official CEFR test, which might take you longer than 3 months to do. But if you're looking for that objective measure, then that's something you should look towards doing next. Speaking of next, that reminds me, whether or not you're able to have a 30-minute conversation in your target language or even pass a B1 exam, you should plan on continuing to learn your target language. There's no real finish line in language learning, so you should always be open to learning more and improving your skills in new ways. Okay, that was a long one, but we're just about done. Before we go though, let's do a quick recap of everything we've talked about here. First, it is possible to learn a language super fast, but it's impossible to know what that really means until you define your terms. In my book, a language can be considered learned when you reach a B1 level, and doing that fast would mean getting it done in about 3 months. And then, if I wanted to reach a B1 level in 3 months, I would follow this plan. In month 1, I would grab 2 beginner resources, Assimil and Pod 101, and cover 12 lessons a day, 6 new and 6 old, for 3 hours a day at most. In month 2, I would use LingQ and LingoPie to expand my learning content to authentic podcasts and videos, respectively. I would also begin meeting with a tutor for conversational practice and fit all of these activities into at least 4 hours a day. In month 3, I would do all of the same things I planned for month 2, but I would broaden the range of content I learned from and up the intensity of my learning plan. This means learning for at least 5 hours a day and meeting with a tutor 3 or 4 times a week. At the end of all that, I would determine if I reached my goal by challenging myself to have a comfortable conversation with a native speaker for at least 30 minutes. Additionally, if I had the time and inclination, I might even sign up to take a B1 proficiency exam. Oh, and by the way, if you want a more in-depth look at the steps I take to learn any language from the very beginning, check out my course, Become a Master Language Learner Level 1, the Bidirectional Translation Method. In the course, I go into exhaustive detail on my most powerful language learning technique and show you exactly how you can put it into practice yourself in your own life. That's all from me for now. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy language learning.